So we've got the GPS, Kershaw GPS Pinot Noir, and this is a brand new wine, released, you can see here, the 2018, and it joins the other two wines, which are the Chardonnay and the Syrah. The GPS range is from grapes that are not sourced from the Elgin region. That's why they have the green sash. And you'll see here, well, if you can't see it, I'll read it. It's the Hamel-Larnada Ridge Pinot Noir. So we source this from the Hamel-Larnada, and like the other grapes that we make from Chardonnay and Syrah in the GPS range, these are from sort of fascinating vineyards that have perked my interest, I suppose, over the years. And we have been asked by farmers to perhaps purchase the grapes, or they were interested into what we can do, because we do a lot of this purchasing from farmers just to see what the farm is going to produce. I've done a lot of that, in fact, in this year, in 2020. And in 2018, we've been working with these grapes for 4 or 5 years. Some of them have made their way into the Smuggler's Boot, another range. But I just felt this vineyard was starting to really show some amazing qualities. It's mostly from 777, which is the clone, so essentially a single clone. But in 18, although we didn't do it in 20, but in 18 we did add a little bit of 115 from an adjacent block. So it's not necessarily a single site, but it's from 2 sites right next to each other. In the Hamel-Larnada Ridge, which is that extension of the whole Hamel-Larnada, in an amphitheatre further up the Hamel-Larnada from Hermanus area, and I just really like this fruit. It's much more typical to the style that you get from that area, which is a more fleshy style of fruit. It's a little bit more fruity, a little bit more structure. You'll see the colour is a bit deeper if you had the clonal selection next side to it, and it tends to be a wine which I think has a beautiful perfume, different perhaps to the aromatics, perhaps a little bit more black fruit or darker fruits, but not always. For me, when I smell this, you know, I'm getting perhaps some red cherries as well as black cherries, and a little bit more of that black plum. But there's definitely a little bit more to it than say, you know, regular Pinot. And as I've referred to in my clonal selection, getting those secondary flavors are really important. And that's actually why we bottle this, because up until this point I was getting a lot of primary stuff, and we've been working with its aging, the way we make it, which I can digress into. We do a delosage on this, which are very similar to what we do with the Kershaw. And that enables us to reduce any vegetal or off flavors, maintain a lower volatile acidity, and make a much purer wine. So this is something we've worked on. And then, of course, what I hadn't mentioned previously is that we use a basket press to press everything. We put everything in the basket press, and we can allocate some of the press juice into a separate barrel, which we can decide not to use at a later stage. I quite like the press juice in the GPS. I think it adds a little bit more structure to the wine, makes it quite different from the clonal selection. And I think this is a wine, we then age it, and with a GPS we can afford a little bit more new wood here than I can with my clonal selection, largely because of a little bit more of the structural components or red fruit components, so we can actually use about 20% new wood. With my clonal I tend to use more like 15%. And we can age it in similarly to what we do with our clonal selection wines. We use a lot of different combinations, algorithms I call them, for determining which clones go into which barrels and for how long and for which coopers they are coming from, and importantly also which particular age of barrels they are. So, you know, as I mentioned, a bit of new wood in here. We'll also use a bit of second and importantly third fill wood, because the third fill wood actually preserves the fruit well without imparting too much of the oak character. We don't want an oaky wine. We want something that's actually going to be balanced. And in this area, I think you get a lovely balanced wine. It has a good underbelly of acidity without it being really piercing. And it tends to be a wine, I think, that will also age equally like the clonal selection.